Y'all, we live in difficult times. There's war, political unrest, the pandemic, poverty, families being torn, communities ripped by gun violence and people dying every day, police, injustice. It's all bringing so much pain. But y'all, we can look inside our minds and we can understand who we are, become better, and do this thing like we've never done it before. But it all starts with our mental health, and I know we can do it. I believe in you because I believe in me, and I believe in us. Hello, and thank you for joining in for another episode of Therapy is Life. And we're going to continue our discussion around we flourish first, not second. The first discussion, we were exploring forgiveness and how it's an important part of our self-care. That's right, because when we hold on to stuff, it eats at us and it keeps us from being our best self. Now we're going to continue to have this discussion, but we're going to talk a little bit more about taking care of your bodies. Because listen, y'all, I don't care what you say. We are what we eat. We are what we do. We are what we live. And so if we don't take care of this temple, we don't take care of this body, we're going to have all kind of issues. Listen, I want to start off by just saying, I've known a number of men. Some of them have been friends of mine who did not go to the doctor on a regular basis. And unfortunately, when they went to the doctor, it was way too late. And the young men I'm talking about, they were young men. They weren't old. They had cancers that was so progressive. They was like in the 4th stages, and they died before they even was 40 years old. And I just think that it's so important for us to go to the doctors. The numbers would reflect that we don't go to the doctors like we need to. And I just want to continue this discussion. Brothers, how y'all feel about this?
Man.
Just going to the doctor.
I think for men, man, it's the most challenging. I think with women, they have an easier time, man, because they have so many female parts that's working that they have to make sure they keep in tune. I think men, God made us a little bit more straightforward. He set the blueprint of the straightforwardness with us, and then he gave the women all the complexities. And so I think men just look at the bare minimums. If they can pee, if they can, take a dump, if they can, eat and sleep, they feel like they still living. You know what I'm saying? And then I think also most men, we're so conditioned to think about work and being productive on a daily basis. We don't allow ourselves the time to get that proper self-care, to give ourselves the mental check-ins that we need, the physical check-ins that we need, because we feel like, man, every day it's got to be a go day. You know what I'm saying? Like I gotta make it happen, make this cash, provide for the fam, try to go to that next venture. So I think just how most men are wired, we put our personal health kind of last on the priority list, and then and a lot of times until it's too late, to your point. And especially amongst black men, for a reason, because my wife's a nurse. I was telling you earlier, like she was telling me how, the healthcare patients that she takes care of, men who are usually dealing with like cancer or some sort of terminal illness, a lot of times the white males are like in their 80s, 90s dealing with those type of issues. But the black men are usually like in their 40s, 50s, and 60s dealing with the same sort of health issues. And a lot of it is connected because they didn't check on themselves until check engine light was already on, until it was already down there too late, and you had stage 3 cancer, and you could have caught it, when it was first forming if you would have, took a little pride aside and started examining yourself. So, I know for me, and once I hit 40, that's when even a little bit before when I was in my mid-30s, and I went to, you know, one of my first annual checkups that I had ever kind of really started doing in my adult life. And he was already trying to put me on pre-hypertension pills and was trying to put me on pre-diabetic things and telling me all this weight I had to lose. And he was like, you know, either you get on these pills or you don't have to change your health regimen. And so I chose the latter. You know, I said, man, I don't want to be hooked to them pills. So I stopped eating certain things, start prioritizing working out and things of that nature just to avoid that. And at 42, you know, I just had an annual screening and the doctor told me, man, my numbers were trending a lot better, you know, a whole lot better. And he couldn't believe he didn't have me on no pills for that. So, yeah, I say all that to say, man, I just think men, man, until it's too late sometimes, man, we ain't even wired to prioritize our health.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen things with myself that I'm just like, all right, I'm just unhappy with and made me want to change things, but I also am, you know, guilty of being a very typical man and just, I'm all right. You know what I mean? And like you said, get up and be on go mode. Recently with, like, and we didn't talk about it on episodes recent, going into the gym, getting back in the gym after so many years and just being kind of on day-to-day go mode, autopilot, just maneuvering through, coming down from 240 to 201, it was like, what happened? And I low-key went on around and like hitting all the homies up like, why ain't y'all tell me I got juicy? This is some BS, bro. I was fat and y'all was just giving me dap.
Because it's like a slow creep to it sometimes.
You feel me? Like,
look 3 years later and it's like, dang, I done gained all this weight, man.
And I got a fire collection of extra large shirts now that all feel weird and fit weird. And I like them shirts. Yeah. And I can't get them shirts now in a large. I'm salty. I got a bunch of large shirts that I still can't quite fit. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't got washed. Yeah, I'm like, it's like, man, I need an extra medium. Like, it's weird now. You know what I'm saying? I'm in some kind of weird spot in between. I can put on a fresh large. Okay. You feel me? Okay. But once you wash it and they get that little shrink on it, it's trying to hug my middle a little bit too much, and I ain't ready yet. But
so one of the man girdles, man.
You feel me? Yeah, I gotta give me one of them.
Get that girdle.
Feel me? But it's a process though, and I'm working now, and it's like it's crazy how fast you can change things. Like we was talking about, like I ain't cut out all the junk. I'm still gonna have me, you know what I'm saying, a couple Albanese here and there, you know what I'm saying, but only a serving size. Instead of smacking a whole bag of gummy bears, I'm gonna eat 9. Instead of eating a whole bag of Doritos, I'm gonna eat 12. Yeah. That's the serving. I know the serving size for a fact because I started eating the serving size. I'm like, if I can't force myself off of everything, I'm gonna at least try to cut and limit myself and just begin to discipline myself. Yeah. And it's those small changes that made my body change in 30 days to all of a sudden it was different. And it's like, it's a necessity, you know, going into like hearing you talk about starting to get into going to get annuals in your mid 30s, bro. That's where I'm at. And I'm just now starting to really get into that and go in. I had a physical the couple days after we came back from Revolt. And I'm in that joint and I'm ultra worried, just thinking that they about to tell me everything wrong. See, that's and like, you know what I'm saying?
I just Atlanta eating all that food.
Man, listen, hold on, wait, real quick, real fast. Revolt was ridiculous because we had to buy Revolt bucks, which came with a fee for us to then be able to use because it was a cashless event. For us to then be able to buy food, drink, and whatever else we wanted while we was on the grounds of the conference. So you had to spend Revolt bucks, and the prices was festival prices for show. So I spent $25 on a funnel cake and a lemonade.
Come on, man.
Bruh.
That was diabetical right there.
You feel me?
That's beyond right there,
because the actual food costs even more than that. So with that being said,
I can imagine it got to be $50 to $60 for a meal.
So instead of coming back to Cleveland broke, bruh. They had a McDonald's food truck that was only giving out fries, but it was unlimited. And then they had and since
unlimited McDonald's fries,
you could just keep going up to it. They just give you another fry. More fries. So, bro,
that would have been terrible.
Do you feel me? So, with that being said, I was terrible the whole Revolt World weekend because, bruh, it was every couple minutes. Let me go over to the food truck, give me some free Mickey D's fries, and then they got barrels all over the grounds filled with ice cold starry sodas, bro.
Yeah, and it was handing them out like you want a starry?
You want a starry? You want a starry? You could. They was open.
And it was hot. Remember too,
right? And 90-something degrees, bro. I'm not trying to spend all my bread. The only thing available is free sodas and free McDonald's fries for 3 days walking around in 90+ degree weather, bro.
Oh, yeah.
So after all the work I did to get my body together, I come down to 201. I leave Cleveland at 201. I came back at 210.
210.
Ooh,
bro. I caught it. I thought it in my head. You about 210 off of that.
210, bro.
Yeah.
And like I said, my appointment was 2 days when we come back. So I walk into the doctor. I go in there. I get my physical. He tell me, "Yeah, you're a bit overweight." I'm like, "Fam, if you would have got me last week,
I would have been good.
I was all right." You know what I'm saying? It was the McDonald's and the Starry. You feel me?
That's
but
crazy.
We gotta be on top of these things.
Yeah.
And hold on, wait. Also, I'm sorry. I'm taking so much. Listen, I found out something amazing.
What you found amazing?
Something that's amazing for you know what I'm saying, for my two older brothers here, you know what I'm saying. Unfortunately, y'all seem to potentially have had to gone through this, you know what I'm saying, the antiquated way. But now, as of very recent, my doctor says a prostate exam is done by blood.
Yeah.
So,
What you mean done by blood? Just a blood test?
Yeah.
just a blood test now.
Yeah. It is done by blood test.
No more Matumbos. You know what I'm saying? So
he just passed away. Like,
so
man,
if
stop.
you have not yet went through, don't worry, good brother. All they gonna do is just
somebody said they can take a stool sample.
Yeah, they can take a
Hey, listen.
yeah.
They can take a stool sample.
Yeah.
So
And help.
so yep. You know what I'm saying? Because I was in there. I asked. I went ahead. I asked. I was like, all right, man, listen, doc. When I got to do it, man. And he said, don't worry. Good brother. That's officially my man. So now I was like, yo, that's my guy. I ain't worried about it.
What did he say you had to take it in your 30s? I thought that didn't start until your 40s.
He said a couple years ago they changed the age lower, and then he said then
men.
recently it went up to 45, and he said, and it's mostly based on family history. And so it's not even necessary unless, you know what I'm saying, you got potential risk factors based on family history now. Yeah. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? For those of you men who dodging and ducking in your 30s, trying not to go to the doctor because you think, you know what I'm saying, they're going to hit you with the ET, don't worry about that. You all right.
You know what? When I think about this, though, seriously, man, I think about, I don't know the story, so I like to be careful about how I say this because I don't know what happened. But, you know, I was very hurt when Chadwick Boseman passed away, man. For a long time, I couldn't even watch Black Panther. Like, again, I couldn't watch it, man. It was like a family member had passed. Right. And I remember seeing him in, I think it was 21 Bridges. And I thought maybe it was just the way he looked was just a part of the movie. Right. But he was really sick then. He was really sick. He was going through it, man. And that was courageous of him. But, I don't know. But he died young, and maybe it could have been prevented. But maybe they were doing everything they could do because you never know. But it goes to show the importance of going to the doctor on a regular basis and getting checked out. Yeah. And I know me, man. I want to say this because I've made it a pretty good. My family blood pressure, even prostate has been things that we've been faced with. But I know me, I've always had anxiety about going to the doctor, and I think it came from me feeling traumatized by getting shots as a kid. Going to the doctor, thinking about the needles, not liking needles, getting pricked and all that stuff. And every time I go to the doctor, I start getting a little anxiety because I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I got to go in here, I have to take a shot. Yep. And like, and when I have to take a shot now, I don't look because I just don't want to see it, even to this day.
Needles going in.
But But I also think we don't want to hear bad news, man. We scared we're gonna hear bad news.
Yeah, bro, waiting after you go to the doctor and just checking your chart or waiting on the phone call, just like, man, please tell me everything all right, fam.
Yeah.
I just do not want you to bang my line and tell me some BS.
Yeah, remember
that's real.
Remember
That's horrifying, bro.
And I also think that there's on another level, and I don't know if that was really my issue, but for many of us, because think about the Tuskegee experiment and all this, we don't trust medical providers.
Yeah,
man. We think they lying to us. Or
well, that's the point that I was gonna bring up too. I think.
Okay, go ahead.
A lot of the blame goes to modern medicine or medicine in general, how it's been administered to the people and how it's been, kind of like there's a level of distrust that I feel like we've had as a country, for sure in America, I would say, related to medicine because of the side effects that medicine has caused people, or even the malpractice that has happened, where, certain doctors, aren't held accountable. I got, some people who were close to me who, were going to the hospital, and it's similar to like what happened to Kanye's mom, for a procedure that was to enhance their life and ended up dying behind the hands of the doctor because they didn't do the procedure exactly how they should have, So anytime you going under anesthesia or, have to go under a doctor's care like that, man, it's not a guarantee that they gonna do the right thing.
Right.
Sometimes they do have malpractice, and sometimes they do, slip up. They are human hands on your body doing these procedures, man, sometimes. So they can have error too. But I think that's another phobia that people have when it comes to, dealing with these doctors, and sometimes they'll put their healthcare in their own hands.
Right. And you know what? And sometimes I think in dealing with doctors, they don't have so obviously they're very intelligent people, gifted, skilled, but some doctors don't have any emotional intelligence, man. Their bedside manner is just terrible, man. And it make you feel so uncomfortable. And you're talking about your body, in something that's very important to you, and they're acting like so matter of fact and just cold. And it's like, huh? I'm talking to you about my body is important to me, and I just don't. I mean, I don't feel like you're just saying what you're saying. You're not even giving me decent eye contact, and it's like you are like aloof, like, and I'm like, I'm wondering like what's going on, and I was like, doctors need training.
They need training.
For sure.
Or like how to connect with people.
Out of all that school that they got to go to, it ain't no classes in empathy. They going in there and they learning stats and facts and data and how X works with Y to create Z and so on and so forth. So it's like when you go through that repetition, you definitely can find yourself the same way that everything operates. When we so overexposed to things, you become desensitized to it. Yeah. And then especially when it's your job, it just becomes it's just factual. And we all can be that way. You know what I mean? Like,
when you're an expert in your field.
You just know. So it's like you can lose sight of that personal touch with things. I mean, I've caught myself be the same way, talking to somebody about this podcast and stuff. It's like I can just give you what the factual information is, but I also still have that understanding that having a conversation with somebody and understanding what their concern is, I can empathize with it to be able to bring it to that level that they need it to be at. Yeah. But again, when you're dealing with people who, it's the same if you imagine people who work in, in death. Funeral homes and all that. Like they. Now I feel like they got their front people who are family facing, who are talking to the fam. We feel so bad. We empathy. They got those people who are specifically for that. Because behind the scenes, they got them people that's like, oh, such and such died. All right, how much did the body weigh? Okay, we need to ship it from here to here. All right, they ain't thinking about all that sensitivity. Yeah, it's just a part of, you know what I'm saying? So again, it's kind of like what we talked about on the last episode. It's giving a little bit of that grace and that forgiveness and understanding that it's like,
Yeah, and it's so hard with doctors because you might be talking about something very important, some medication or some treatment you need, and they just seem so matter of fact about it. Like, and you feel like, oh, well, I need to get some more information to get more understanding about what something is or what something isn't. And remember, this could be like for many people a place where they experience some grief. Because this means some significant change or you got to do something different. So now anticipatory grief comes into play. And so this person that's want to be a medical provider, the way they dialogue and communicate with you is vital in the process. Because if I wasn't the person that I was, I feel like a few times I would have probably not engaged doctors because I didn't like their manner, and I was walking my head through their personalities, and I think I'm a therapist, so I kind of get that, right? But there's a lot of people out here that don't get that, and so I really think doctors can do a better job and work more at understanding how people see them. And when he talked about intimate space, particularly with, I think maybe it might be different for different ethnic groups, but I know when you're talking about Black people, you gotta have a little bit of that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That touch, that little bit of soul. Feel like we connecting a little bit. Because if we not, then it feels like, okay, what you giving me? You giving me the information. You saying what? Okay, well, yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you. See you next appointment. And be good that way. Have a nice. It's like what the.
But that's the importance of when you go into those type of visits, because we hadn't had an incident with my daughter. She had to have some procedures, and the doctor who was taking care of her, he kind of suffered from the same thing as far as like he was an expert in his space, but he had that lack of empathy. Like he just talked about everything so textbook and matter of fact, even in front of her, right? And so that we had to let him know, like, you can tell us certain things more direct. Her ears are a little bit more sensitive to, she's hearing what you're saying too. She's hearing you tell us that she might be experiencing long-term pain or, those trigger words that are going to scare a little kid, so that fear starts at a young age, like you said. But one, we had to tell him, from now on, when you have certain things that you want to say that might be triggering, tell us in private. Like, don't tell it in front of my daughter, so you're scaring her in this situation. And then we had another incident happen where we had to even take it to a step further and advocate and talk to, the people who handle that for the hospital, like where they're expecting you to give them some sort of, feedback on how they could be better, as doctors. So then the next time we came, we could see that, those emails that we sent off as far as a better experience, a more positive experience, they took heed to that. Right. Because when we came back the next time, it was a totally different. You could tell that in their notes, it says, oh, okay, make sure you talk to them outside that room, or make sure that you check with them before you do a certain thing. And, so they take heed to that, but a lot of people don't even take the time to, respond to the hospitals and let them know what they could do better. Right, in that aspect.
Yeah, people have to do that, and I think it's important for us, if we don't feel comfortable with a doctor or a medical procedure, keep researching and finding somebody else that you feel comfortable with and everything, because that's so important. Because people just be trying to do their jobs, trying to push the numbers, get move through one surgery to another surgery, and stuff like that. Another thing on their notch, not really thinking about the human aspect of it and how people feel in the process. So definitely, reach out to the hospital, let them know what's going on. Find you somebody that you can feel comfortable with. Because don't assume, because this is like, don't generalize and assume that because you had one bad experience, so you should never go to a doctor. Because that's just not healthy either.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
And also, man, us here in Cleveland, man, we take it for granted, the hospital facilities that we're around. I was in Tennessee one time, a little remote, small little country town in Tennessee. And I told the lady I was from Cleveland, and she was like, oh, yeah, we travel up to Cleveland every time my mother has a doctor's appointment, because and it made me like, dang, people really like do the type of research to make sure that they got to come to Cleveland to get medical treatment. Like when when we're in the abundance of this, it's like something wrong. Hey, I'm gonna drive to Cleveland Clinic. You know what I'm saying? And just go to the doctor. So,
bro, the fact that Cleveland Clinic is world renowned is crazy. People fly here from other countries to be in our medical facilities. And we don't
cross the water,
and we don't even go to them.
Literally, right on the block. We won't go down the street, man.
Yeah, but I gotta admit, I don't like going to main campus. I get so much anxiety, so I'm like, by the time I get to it, I gotta go. My blood pressure gonna be up because I don't. So I found me an office. I found me an office that I go to where it's just they're associated with Cleveland Clinic, but it's just
Why
a couple
does main
doctors.
campus give you anxiety?
Because it was just
too big.
Too big. All this motion and movement. You got to be like, it feel like you're in an airport. You know, you got to be like, okay, oh my gosh.
It can be intense.
Like, yeah, and then we all trying to get home for the holiday. Damn, bro.
But it's like, okay, man. So let me just find me another office somewhere where I can have more of a personal touch with the doctors, and it feel like they kind of like know me, and we can have like a conversation and dialogue. And so when I go see my doctor, man, it's like we had this conversation. We talking about business and different things. I feel like, I feel like I kind of know him. He knows me. We got like a personal, and even his nurse practitioner, got a vibe. We have great conversation, and I feel more comfortable, more at ease when I go in there, man. Yeah, shucks, man. But hey, that's why I tell people that you have to keep searching. Don't just give up because you had a bad experience at a doctor. Just like you have a bad job, but serious fellas, man, I think it's important, like emphasizing. I think it's good we having this conversation about people going to the doctor. But since we talking about doctors, man, what about the idea of bros getting therapy, man? Because I think that's another important. Of course, I'm gonna think that, right? I'm a therapist.
Yeah.
But being a therapist, I've had therapy in my own life, and I just thought it was good that I was able to reflect and explore my own thoughts and feelings without being judged, and it was confidential, man. That really helped me to be able to analyze and work through some problems I was facing in my own life. And I also say this about therapists, if you don't like the therapist, I know I had a therapist that said, I shouldn't, there's no expressing anger in here. And I didn't do nothing, but, I didn't really do nothing. I just kind of got a little bit more verbal. And instead of him asking me why I was feeling the way I was feeling or what did that mean for me, he was trying to admonish me for being angry. Yeah. And I was like, nah, man. So I never saw him again. Yeah. But
I would think, man, like nowadays, the era that we're in now is becoming a lot more socially accepted to even bring up having a therapist or talking to somebody. I know for sure, like growing up 90s, early 2000s, like for you to even say, man, you need to go see a therapist, literally to me, like used to connect to like, oh, this dude is like borderline crazy house.
There's something wrong with
you. You know what I'm saying? Like borderline, he might just bomb the joint right now because he that, off the grid. But now I'm at a place where I feel like literally every single body can benefit from it. So for sure, men who, like we talked about earlier, man, don't do enough self-care as is, like we always constantly on the go, always being held to, like somebody made a interesting point, man, like how moms are allowed to be broke, but dads aren't. Mm-hmm. Like moms can say, hey, I'm not really, digging working right now, or I can't find a job. I got to raise the kids. But dads really don't have that excuse. There's no excuse for a dad not to say, or for a male to not be working, to not be handling some sort of business. You don't get that type of pass in life as a man to not be bringing something to the table. So because of that, you put so much expectation on yourself, you can forget to pour back into yourself and make sure that you okay. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so many things that, like, I think it's dope that it's becoming trendy to be like, man, hey, check on your bro, man, make sure he okay.
Right, exactly.
It's okay not to be okay. Like, I think that's a dope thing that's being able to come to surface now, because for so long, and I think we talked about this in another episode about, you know, what it is to define masculinity or male, right? Men are synonymous with being strong, with being, you know, nothing's bothering us, you know, to be the coolest cat in the room type vibe, invincible, you know, that superhero mentality. But I think to say that you need to talk to somebody is like a vulnerability, it's a sign of weakness. And a lot of people's train of thought, instead of understanding it's really like repairing yourself, getting yourself back healed up to a place so that you can still attack this world that's gonna come at you. Yeah. You know, I know for me, that's what it was, like to finally have a different perspective on how I was looking at it. Right. You know, it was all these things as smart as I thought I was, or, you know, many books or podcasts or whatever that I thought I've been seeing to increase my knowledge. I still had my own kind of warped perspective on life sometimes, but how it was coming. So I think that therapist is thorough with giving you a different perspective or helping you, you know, look at it from not such a toxic view.
Exactly. And I want to say, just to add to that, like, when people say that old adage, like, well, people, they must be crazy if they need therapy, I think it's to the contrary. Because just like if I was to hurt my leg and I had a pain and I recognized that there was something wrong with my leg, I'm saying to myself, I need to check it out. And if it doesn't get better, I need to go to the doctor because I sense that something's wrong. If I have the ability emotionally to be aware of myself and realize that I'm having some form of neurosis, depression or anxiety, or I'm OCD or whatever is going on with it, if I'm aware of that, and it's kind of like similar to my leg, but it's emotionally, if I'm aware of it, that says I'm conscious of myself emotionally. And I say, well, I need help because I know I'm not performing like myself, so let me go get help. You have to be very sane and in tune with yourself to be able to do that. Now, if I just keep it real and raw, if I'm a mess, I'm running all over the place, I can't seem to get my life together, I got all these different emotions, it seems like I can kind of in a sense tell that, you know, I have difficulty with relationships, I have difficulty keeping a job or whatever is going on with me, but I'm not able to get in touch with myself and realize that there's a problem. Maybe I am aware, but my self-concept keeps me from going to get help because I feel like I don't want to hear nobody tell me or identify my problems, or I'm just so out of touch with it that I don't think it's a problem because it's become functional for me to operate in this space. So I don't really see it as a problem. So I won't go get help. But somebody who's operating at a pretty normal level, they feel this emotional pain or disturbance in themselves. Like, wait a minute, there's something going on. My check engine light is coming on. I need to go get a checkup.
For sure.
And I think that comes from a healthy place. So typically people who seek therapy are people who seek advisement, wise counsel, or support. And it's always confidential at that.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this.
Yes.
Because I got a close homeboy who I've been trying to encourage him to go see therapy. Right? And his response is, man, I tried that. Every time I go, they try to put me on some meds that make me not feel anymore, right? So when I take the meds, I don't feel, and it helps me, or not even that it helps him, but it just literally makes him not feel anything. And he says he gets to the point where he gets unmotivated and he just stays in. And so to counter that, he says, man, I'm not going to therapy, you know. Now, for him, he's self-medicating, you know, going to the bar, you know, drinking to you know, basically deal with the issues that he's really internally feeling and not addressing the right way. He'll go to the bar, drink, but then he understands that that's turning him into a toxic situation as well, because then he get in his feelings for real, and it's always a constant. But his thing is he correlates going to therapy with somebody putting on some medication that is going to make him feel some type of way.
Yeah, you know what? And I don't know his case, but in generally speaking, I think it's important for people to have an opportunity to self-determine. So in therapy, it should be someone that you have some level of connection, just like we talked about with the doctor. But even more important in therapy, because we're talking about your emotional health, and in some ways, therapy is more nuanced. So it's about empowering the person to make decisions for themselves. So if they don't feel like they want to take medication, then they should be able to assert that, communicate that to their provider, and then they need to work on a plan to help them improve without medication. And perhaps maybe if this person would work on that plan, they may come to the conclusion that maybe the medicine might work, but feeling forced, because you say, well, I feel all these different ways when I take the medication, and maybe we could say, well, that's just the normal side effects from your body getting used to taking the medication. Mm-hmm. But until that person's invested in that process, then it's going to be harder for them to even attempt to walk through that because, well, I'm not convinced I want to take medication. But for many people, medication and therapy works, but others, it doesn't. But for many people, they need an opportunity to embrace the experience, the journey for themselves. And once they get involved in that process, once they start moving in that process, they might find, okay, let me try this or let me try that. But I think it's all about the relationship you develop with your therapist.
So what's the difference between a therapist and a psychiatrist?
So a therapist's primary job is to assess, do an evaluation of a person's mental health concerns and issues. So they're going to evaluate for anxiety, depression, OCD, post-traumatic stress, adjustment disorders, schizophrenia, so that's their job. Their job is then to help develop a plan for a person using some type of talk therapy, whether it might be CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, some kind of psychoanalytic therapy, junking, transactional analysis. We have all these different forms of therapy that people can use, but those are what we consider to be like talk therapies. But a psychiatrist's job is primarily to see the diagnostic information, identify the symptoms, and provide medication to address the issue. So when somebody sees a psychiatrist who's a medical doctor, they may do some talk therapy, but their primary role is to help the person regulate the issue with the use of medication. So it's very likely that a psychiatrist may only see a person for 15 minutes and ask them about their symptoms and then offer them medication. Right. That's their role.
So a psychiatrist is not really giving like therapy or therapeutic like conversation like that.
Right. They're going to be medication research. They may do a lot of book writing, but the dialogue with the client, if they don't say that they're a therapist, and there's some psychiatrists who might do therapy, but if they don't really ascribe to that, don't really say that that's what they do, then you probably need to find you a therapist along with your psychiatrist. Just like psychologists, they may be therapists, but a lot of them just do testing.
So that's another thing. Psychiatrists and psychologists.
Yeah, so you have therapists, and some psychologists and some psychiatrists may do therapy, but many of them just do certain things. They do testing. So if I'm working with a client, I've done an assessment, I'm still unsure about some things that's going on with them, maybe I refer them to a psychologist to do more deeper testing to help us pinpoint the diagnosis so we can develop a better treatment plan to help the person work on their particular goals. So where a psychiatrist is going to get involved because of the medication. So sometimes it may start with a therapist, and then it might move if we have questions about diagnosis and I'm not sure. I was like, well, I'm gonna get a psychologist maybe can help us with understanding more in detail what the mental health diagnosis should be. And the psychiatrist, they're looking at this and saying, well, we need medications. Often people who have deep depression might benefit from medication. People who have anxiety, people who have OCD, people who have mood disorder or bipolar, they might benefit from medications. But there are people who figure out how to manage this stuff without medications. But the challenge is when your life becomes more stressed. Mm-hmm. That's when you have these particular diagnoses, it might become harder to manage it. Like when people have severe ADHD, you know, it might be harder for them to manage the symptoms when their life becomes more overwhelming. They got a lot going on, and then they all over the place. Yeah. So understanding the difference, I think that's a good question, because understanding the difference between a therapist, a psychologist, and a psychiatrist is important. And if you're going to see a psychiatrist, and you need to make sure, are they going to provide therapy, or are they just going to be somebody who's going to talk to you, assess the situation, and give you medication? Likewise, if you see a psychologist, are they really going to do counseling, or are they just going to be there for testing? And if you see a therapist, understanding their modes of practice, what they like to do as a therapist, and do you feel like you really connect with them? Because everybody ain't a good fit for everybody.
Yeah. So my last question then related to that then is, what would be somebody's start point? Should they start at a psychiatrist, or should they start at a therapist?
You know, depending on the situation, I think it's never wrong to start with a therapist if you're trying to start with the least invasive, like say medicine. If you are not necessarily open to medicine initially, you might feel more comfortable starting with a therapist. But if you were like a person like, okay, well, you know, I'm down with medication, I feel comfortable with that, maybe you can start there. But not everybody can do that. Some psychiatrists will recommend off the rip, like, you see a therapist because maybe the medication shouldn't be long term. Now, there's other people that have more severe diagnoses might need that. People who have bipolar disorder or some type of mood disorder might need to use a medication maybe for the rest of their life. Just like if they had diabetes or some blood pressure issues, they might need to do it for the rest of their life. Other people, you know, it may be situational where they have these issues. So I would say, where are you comfortable at? If you're comfortable starting with medication, go to a psychiatrist. They may recommend you go to a therapist. But if you're not sure about medication, maybe start with a therapist and see if you can get on some plans and things that might help you improve your situation and go from there.